Tommy P's back here. Tom Pelissero here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Tom? Good to see you.
Tommy.
Doing fantastic. Continuing to move forward on Aaron Rodgers' watch, which for the first time in a little bit here includes actual eyes on him.
Okay.
So, developments here.
All right. So that's a great way to start. As I can confirm you're in our building right now via Zoom. What is going on with Rodgers? He is physically there in Pittsburgh at the Steelers facility as we talk, Tom?
Aaron Rodgers was in the Steelers facility this morning. My understanding was this was kind of a last-minute type of a thing. Aaron Rodgers came to the facility. He spent some time with coaches. He's been talking to people in the organization for a while now, and there's certainly been a lot of signs that he is seriously considering playing his 21st NFL season in Pittsburgh. This is the first time, though, that Aaron Rodgers has taken an actual visit to a team. Obviously, with the conversations and the revelations a few days ago that the Vikings were not going to be pursuing Aaron Rodgers at this time, that honed in his options very clearly on the Steelers and the Giants. Pittsburgh, for a variety of different reasons, would seem to make the most sense, though the Giants have continued to have a dialogue with Rodgers' agent, Dave Dunn. And today was another step. Now, what I can tell you is what I was told, there is no deal done. There is no deal imminent. It's not like he was coming in to sign. This was, he popped in, he spent time with coaches, spent time around the facility here. This does set the table, though, Rich, for Rodgers to potentially make a decision and in turn then set off the rest of the dominoes across the quarterback market.
So he left the building then? He did leave it? There's no
My understanding is he had been planning to leave right around this time. So
okay.
I don't have a GPS tracker on him, Rich, but that was supposed to be wrapping up right around now.
Well, the reason why I ask, not that you're going to start tracking him, but you know how this works. You want to sign somebody, you don't let them leave the building. And so I guess this is different. Do we know, is he on a tour? Is he now going to see? I mean, he's kind of got to know where the Giants facility is. He doesn't need to look around, that part of New Jersey wondering what it looks like to live there or be in the building, right? It's just instead of green, it's blue, right? I mean,
I would say this, Rich. Aaron Rodgers is doing his own process, and it's not like anybody else's process. You're right. I mean, in the old days of free agency, especially, it was, hey, if you get the guy in the building, don't let him leave, because then if he gets on that plane, he's probably going to the next place. With Aaron, Aaron's got to make up his mind, and he's got two teams right now that have put everything else on hold for him. Again, the Vikings engaged, but we talked about this a few days ago that, at this time, they've talked with Rodgers. He and Kevin O'Connell have a very close relationship. There were ongoing conversations, a lot of respect there. But the Vikings made clear to him that, we're proceeding with JJ McCarthy, which is the same message that they delivered to the other teams that were calling and saying, hey, all this Rodgers stuff floating around, would you trade JJ McCarthy? It's no. We're rolling with him as our quarterback here. So for Rodgers, the first question is he going to play? Everything that I have heard is that he is motivated to, put the requisite time in. This is not going to be him being a part-time quarterback. It's going to be, he's going to be motivated to go out and finish his career the right way. Is that going to be in Pittsburgh? Is that going to be with the Giants? Is there a world in which Aaron could just say, I don't feel great about either option, and I'm going to wait and see what else develops? Anything's possible, but certainly it seemed like this has been tracking, Rich, to potentially have a resolution here in the coming days. We'll see exactly when that is. But we do know this, if Aaron Rodgers tells the Steelers or the Giants, I want to come there and play, those teams want that to happen. And I would anticipate that, all the financial stuff and the contract and all that would be secondary and should not be that difficult to figure out.
Now, you said we talked about it in terms of the Vikings' decision to stick with JJ McCarthy at the moment, at this time, as you said in your post. You talked about it. We have not talked about it yet. So now it's time to do that. And by the way, greatly appreciate that report the other day when we were all waiting to talk about something while waiting for the NCAA tournament to start. So thank you for that. What can you, more meat on the bones, please, sir? Why did the Vikings make this decision? And it does strike me that there had to be someone in the building who's like, no, we're not going with 41-year-old former Packer here when we got the kid. So can you identify or are willing to identify who that individual in the process was Tom?
I think first of all, let's take a step back here because
Sure.
there have been some things reported and rumored that I think are, let's say, exaggerated or lacking context. The idea that this was, a coin flip of, hey, do we do Rodgers or McCarthy? Or that, this was they were strongly considering it. They were about to do it and somebody stomped it out. That's not my understanding. Aaron Rodgers wanted to come to play in Minnesota, which shouldn't surprise anybody because a lot of quarterbacks would love to have the setup there with, Kevin O'Connell has had Kirk Cousins play his best football. Sam Darnold plays best football. You get to play with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Aaron Jones behind an offensive line that just got injected with a lot of beef up front. There's a lot of reasons quarterbacks want to come here. When a four-time NFL MVP, who Kevin O'Connell is known for 15 years, reaches out and says, hey, I would like to come there. I wouldn't even, it wouldn't cost you a ton. I would just like to come and play in Minnesota. I think you'd be negligent in your duties to not talk about it and think about it and say, all right, is this the right thing to do? But the other side of this is they have a guy in JJ McCarthy who they have full confidence in to be their quarterback for years to come. This was not strictly about 2025, though when you're a 14-win team coming off of a playoff appearance and you're very much pushing in free agency, bringing in veterans like Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, you're saying we think we can win right now. You're weighing out, all right, what's the best thing in 2025, but also what's the impact on 2026 and 2027 and beyond? If you were to sign an Aaron Rodgers, he might be, if he's able to channel, he's not the quarterback that he was, but if he's able to channel some of that, even at age 41, perhaps in the very short term, he would be more ready to lead the team. But what's the impact of that on McCarthy, who, remember, did not get any reps last year through the entire season? Forget first teamers, any reps at all because he was dealing with a knee injury that required surgery to fix a tear of the meniscus. He had a second procedure done to clean things up in December. He missed out on all those reps. If you have Rodgers in there, he's taken all those reps. So when you're talking about the development of JJ McCarthy, to say nothing of the way that you had drafted him last year with the idea we're going to be able to build around the young quarterback on a rookie contract. We've got cost controlled for 3, 4, 5 years. Even bringing in Aaron Rodgers at an adjusted number, but also delaying the development, that would all change the plan. And so there's a ton of dialogue. There's a ton of respect between Kevin O'Connell and Aaron Rodgers. But when they talked a few days ago, it was made very clear to Rodgers, just this is not, the direction that we're wanting to go. The Vikings, if you pay attention to their press conferences, they never speak in absolutes. They're never going to slam the door on anything because you just don't know, circumstances could change. I know, again, there's been stuff floated out there, but they'll be monitoring closely in the spring. This is more about, listen, injuries happen. Teddy Bridgewater, in the same organization, different regime, but Teddy Bridgewater on August 30th had his knee pop out of place on the practice field, and they had to go, all right, what are we going to do? And they trade a first-round pick to go bring in Sam Bradford. I mean, these are the types of scenarios. Yeah, if Aaron Rodgers is sitting out there and something drastically changes, why would you want to slam the door on the guy who might be your best option? It's kind of like I'm reminded of the quote, Rich, a few years ago when Kyle Shanahan was asked if he could guarantee something about, I think it was Jimmy Garoppolo being on the roster. And Kyle's response was, I can't guarantee any of us will be alive on Sunday. Why would you ever slam the door on something, even if it's a remote possibility? And I think that's the key upshot here, Rich, is, again, this was painted by, certain people, and I think things get caught in the echo chamber, and it seems like it's 50-50. This was always a long shot with Aaron Rodgers. Yes, circumstances could change, and they could end up revisiting it. But what I hear from behind the scenes is JJ McCarthy's knee is a non-issue right now. He's put the weight back on. There was some concern about that because when he was shown on the sidelines, he's weighing 207 to 209 right now. He's working out several days a week at the facility. He looks great. It's just, all right, let's give him all the reps. Let's throw the organizational weight behind this guy. We drafted him there for a reason. We believe this is the dude. We're going to let him work through whatever, rookie growing pains he's going to go through here in year 2, but full belief that JJ McCarthy is going to be the guy, and they hope he's ready to play at a really high level sooner than later.
Our guy, Tom Pelissero, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Thank you for that perspective. I knew you had it, and I was eager to get it from you since your post and report earlier this week. So Rodgers being in the building in Pittsburgh, the only indication that we can get from this is that it does appear he understands there's a clock for other people. And in terms of that, the holdup that this has created is more than just the Steelers and the Giants. It's whichever team that doesn't get Rodgers, or both, if he just decides not to play, spills into the draft. And there's other teams like maybe the Giants close enough to maybe go up and make that move to one. And then there's Russell Wilson. There's Kirk Cousins there for maybe even Cleveland, or the Giants for a team that maybe gets desperate enough to call the Falcons and say how much for him in terms of how much contract you can eat and all that sort of business. So walk me through your opinion of what the next dominoes to fall would be if Rodgers makes a decision soon. What do you think happens next? What should our fans that are listening and watching us right now, Tom, keep an eye on from Rodgers' decision in the pond?
Well, I would start with this. There's 4 teams right now who we don't have a clear picture of who their starting quarterback is going to be. That's the Steelers, the Giants, the Browns, and the Titans. The Steelers have made abundantly clear they're willing to wait for Aaron Rodgers. They also, in the meantime, signed Mason Rudolph, who they had brought back. They played maybe the best football they've played in the past few years down the stretch in 2023 when Mason Rudolph was chucking deep balls to George Pickens, who loves Rudolph. And then Mason Rudolph, not Kenny Pickett, not Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph was the one who started a playoff game for the Steelers that year. They know they can play with Mason Rudolph if all else fails. For Russell Wilson, even though he finished last season as the starter in Pittsburgh, nothing shocks me, Rich, but I would be very surprised if Russell Wilson, under any circumstances, is back in Pittsburgh. They wanted to re-sign Justin Fields over Russell Wilson. They're now making clear they would like to sign Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson. He is no better and maybe even lower than their third choice. It would seem like Russell Wilson's best opportunities are going to be either with the Giants or the Browns. So let's go to the Giants. The Giants have had Russell Wilson, Joe Flacco, and Jameis Winston in for visits. So in the meantime, while they are also waiting for Aaron Rodgers, who is their top choice after they missed out on Matthew Stafford, they are waiting on Aaron Rodgers. If he does not end up landing in New York, which based on Rodgers visiting Pittsburgh today, I would say Pittsburgh is probably more likely at this point than the Giants. But at that point, the Giants will have to figure out, okay, based on where they're at contractually and everything else, do they go to Russell Wilson? Do they potentially go to a Flacco or a Jameis? But it does seem like Russell Wilson is very much in play for the Giants. Russell Wilson was also very much in play for the Browns. He visited them. It sounds like this is a real option for Cleveland. Cleveland also owns the number 2 overall pick, one spot above the Giants. And so you have some questions there in terms of what are those teams going to do with those picks? Is Russell Wilson, depending where he lands, is he a bridge to somebody else in one of those places? And does Russell Wilson evaluate his opportunities in part based on, all right, how long am I really going to get in this new place? Because he probably doesn't want to go somewhere that if they, they're 2 and 3 out of the gate and they bench him for, a young quarterback. The team that's not really attached to anybody at this point and have not had any of these veteran quarterbacks in on visits, really haven't even been rumored to be in on any of them, are the Titans, who have the number 1 pick, which has a lot of people within the league believing that they're going to take Cam Ward and just roll with the rookie. They brought in Brandon Allen as a veteran backup option there, and the Titans may well do that. Kirk Cousins is still floating in the ether here. There are scenarios where I could see it making sense, depending on how things play out, for any of those other teams I mentioned to potentially, go down the road with Kirk Cousins, meaning Pittsburgh, New York, or Cleveland. The real question is, number one, when does Aaron Rodgers make his decision and where does he go? And then the second part of that is, does Russell Wilson at some point, if he has an offer on the table, namely from Cleveland, at some point does he just say, I'm going to sign with the Browns because I don't want to be going to a place where I'm second or third fiddle. I want to go to the team that actually wants me. That's a little bit of the unknown right here. I would say, Rich, as much as everybody, seems to be painting this as we're going to be in for a long wait on Aaron Rodgers, this whole thing could be jammed up for a while. I would not be surprised if we have clarity. Again, nothing for sure, nothing imminent at this point with Rodgers in Pittsburgh, but I would not be surprised if in the next, let's call it 72 hours, we've got some movement in this quarterback market, which in turn then will, speed things up in terms of where does Flacco go, Jameis Winston, Trey Lance, and some of the other significant players who are still available on the street.
You know that famous shot of Brock Osweiler getting frustrated because he thinks he's going in the game only to watch Peyton Manning trot back out there again? That would be, I imagine, Kenny Pickett if he sees Russell Wilson show up in Cleveland, right? Like he'd be like, another AFC North spot where I think I'm the starter, and then this guy shows up. Like,
well, you remember, too, it did not go over well with Kenny Pickett when they signed Russell Wilson because he thought he had
He said, treat me as a hostage.
He thought he'd been told that he was going to get a fair opportunity to be the starter. And then Mike Tomlin told him Russ is coming in the pole position. And Pickett found out that Russell Wilson was coming to Pittsburgh in an Instagram post that Russell Wilson put up. I would imagine that wouldn't go over great. Listen, Kenny Pickett, was part of a Super Bowl winning team last year. Everybody likes Kenny Pickett, but that would certainly be not ironic, but it would be a tad unfortunate for Kenny Pickett, who, listen, if all else fails, there's scenarios certainly out there where it's Kenny Pickett competing with a rookie quarterback to be the starter out of the gate.
Right. Before I let you go, Tom, not to rope you into a what's more likely, but you are going to be sitting in this chair in a few Fridays from now, so just get you ready. Brockman asked me one before. I'd love to ask your thoughts. Who's more likely to sign first? Is it Brock Purdy or Micah Parsons?
I would say it's Brock Purdy because my understanding is the 49ers are just simply much further along in the Brock Purdy process. They've had negotiations. They have gone back and forth. It does not sound like anything is imminent or even close right now with Brock Purdy. The question is just where should those numbers be? Even last year in a down year where everybody was hurt, he didn't have McCaffrey, Ayuk tears his ACL, Debo was banged up, Kittle was banged up. I mean, they had all kinds of challenges here. He was still, if you look at the advanced metrics, Brock Purdy in a lot of categories was still like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. And when Kyle Shanahan, who, let it be known, did not die by Sunday, when he says, I want Brock Purdy to be here as long as I'm the coach, and he's that good with quarterbacks, that should tell you something about how highly he values him. Is that a $60 million a year deal? I would not think this is Brock Purdy coming in, well off of that number. The salary cap has grown since Dak Prescott signed his contract. Purdy has the numbers. He's got the public support of the franchise. It just seems like this one could move faster. Whereas with Micah Parsons, not that it can't get done. I know there's been stuff floating around. We talked about on Super Bowl Sunday the fact there have been internal conversations going back to last year about whether or not it was the right thing to extend Micah Parsons at the top of the market, a market that only has grown by a significant amount since then, or whether or not it was the right thing to trade him for, a boatload of picks and reshape the roster. From everything I've gathered in the last 24 hours, there's nothing to trade discussions at this point. It does not sound like that's the plan with Micah Parsons. But when it comes to doing, big contracts, nothing in Dallas tends to move particularly quickly here. And now all of a sudden, instead of figuring out, are we right to be paying Micah Parsons $35 million a year? Now it's, are we right to paying Micah Parsons $41 million a year or more, depending how long this lasts, because TJ Watt's up for a new deal. Aiden Hutchinson is up for a new deal. The market could continue to move, Rich, in the coming months, depending how proactive teams want to be. The Cowboys have not been a proactive team, to say the least. We'll see if that changes with Micah Parsons in the coming days and weeks here. But I would certainly tell you, the last thing that Brian Schottenheimer or Matt Eberflus or anybody's going to want to be dealing with is a holdout that goes into training camp like CeeDee Lamb last year. It was tremendously distracting for the team. It played a role in why the rhythm and timing and tempo in the passing game was not where it needed to be. Micah plays a different position. There's probably less of that goes into it. But still, going out to Oxnard and spending 6 weeks answering questions about what's going on with Micah Parsons, that's not how you want to get a new regime off on the right foot. So we'll see whether or not the Cowboys are willing to actually advance this and try to move at a speed that they've not moved in recent years.
Tom, thanks for everything, as always. Also, great placement of that mug. Is that a picture of you and your dog we got there?
Just, it's an old school Doug right there with Ian and Claymont on one of the
nice.
Network shows here. So somebody in the control room got that shot for me.
Nice.
Any day you can drink from a mug with your own face on it, it's a good day, Rich.
Like, hold on. Here we go.
Can relate, right, Rich?
Tom, thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it. Bless you and your family on a weekend of Where in the World is Aaron Rodgers. Enjoy. Take care. You be
Thanks,
well.
Rich.
You got it. That's
Tommy
P.
Bye, Tom.
See you, Tom.
You didn't say hello to us this time.
That's too bad. He's too big. No,
He's still there. He's still there. Bring him back.
There,
There,
you're up,
come
Tom.
on.
You're up,
Come
Tom.
on. Say
Okay.
goodbye. Make my, hey, Tommy.
I came in a little hot. Somebody was late for an interview, but I made it.
He
DJ
did.
brought
And now
me
he's missing a
boys.
story. Now he's missing a
It's
story.
fine. Nothing's
Fine.
happening.
Now
We
he's
made
missing
his
a
Friday,
story.
Rich.
Now,
Not text.
how many texts do you have right now? Literally, what's the number on the phone? What's the number?
I'm a text
I
him
don't
to make
even.
one.
I don't even want to know.
Seriously, what's the number on the phone? What's your number?
Well,
of text?
what I'm secretly doing, Rich, what you don't realize is while I'm talking to you, I'm over here hitting buttons on my iPad, so I'm kind of scrolling through the text. So the number is not as high as it would be if I weren't sort of just casually glancing over.
The multitasking Tom Pelissero drinking from a mug with his dog on it. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.